What's up guys, this is me again, Takemi. So for this video, we will be implementing the admin login feature for our custom property rentals back office software. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we will be discussing first the backend. So basically for the login, we have this account controller backend which has the route of API v1 account, and then we have this specific route here for the login here. And for this endpoint here, basically this will return the token model, which contains the token details upon login, like this one here. So we have the company ID, access token, refresh token, the serve ID, email, and permission. So basically, we will see this in live action later when will be testing this via Postman. And then we also have this status code return of 400 if everything will contain some errors. And then additionally, we do have this login user command payload. So what this contains is this one here. So basically, for this login user command, we have the email and password payloads, which are from the front end. And then this will be returning the response token model. So after this one here, we also have this login user command validator. So basically, this validator validates the payload being sent from the login page or the login screen from our portal, and then having a set of rules to validate each property. And then if ever there are some violated rules for that specific property or payload, so then the logic will return some kind of error messages indicating what error has occurred. And then next is we go to the command handler. So basically this is the login user command handler, which has the which has the like user command payload, this one here, and then the response token model to return. So basically what we have here is for this line here, I just basically passed the login user command and mapped it to the login user model. And then here, from this one here, I basically did a validation first if the email um, for the specific user that login is um, existing. So like this one here. So basically what I did was just pass the user email from the payload that did a basically retrieve data within the database using this USP underscore get user by info by email by stored procedure, like this one here. So what that does is just basically getting the details for that user, and then it just simply returns the data or null. So basically whenever the sort procedure here finds data for that specific user via the email, so that will basically return the user info, but otherwise it returns null. And then going back here, so for this part here, I just tried to check if the user was null. So if the user was null, so it will basically return this error message here, which indicates a result of null, success is false, and then status code of 400 or like bad requests, and then a message which tells invalid user. But otherwise, if the user is found in the database, so the next would be I just use the built-in password hasher library from the .NET framework, and then here I validated the hash from the database and then the password from the request. And then here, I check if the password verification result is not successful. So it will return a error still. But if the verification is successful, so it will now try to create the claims and then also the GWT token builder like this one here, and then generate the refresh token and then the access token and then pass it to the user here, and then set the refresh token of expiry time, and then model the token model and pass it the company ID, the access token, the refresh token, the ID, and then the email, and also update the the refresh token and the expiry token in the database whenever each login is successful, like this one here. And then after that, the if this token model is passed to here, which is updating of the token model, just like here, if this is or basically if the update of the token is successful, so it is going to execute this part here. So basically, this is getting the user permissions and then try to assign it for a user sessions here. So basically, get user permissions and then try to assign it within the token. And then for this line here, we get the user session permissions via the user ID. And then we get or basically map this user session permissions to the session permissions, and then basically create a session here for the user which contains the permissions that was assigned by to that user upon registration. And but otherwise, if the user is null and the user is not updated, so basically the permissions should be set to null. And then last but not the least, it will return the message of login successful with the status code of OK and success true, and then the token payload here, which contains this one here, this one. And then so yeah, that is our basically the implementation for our user login. So let's try to check if the backend is working. So let's proceed to Postman from here. So okay, so to test, so I'll just check first what are the existing users. So for example, test realty one. So let's try this one here. Okay, so we have this one now. So whenever we try to send let's say null for both the properties within the payload. So let's check the validator first. So if we are going to send this to the backend, so wait, what happened? Oh, just a sec. Wait, let me just. Oh, okay, sorry. I did not run the app. My bad. Okay, let's run this first, and let's just choose the web API first. So let's just wait for it to build and run. And yeah, there we have it. So apologies for that one. So again, let's try to test it. So now we will send a null for both of the properties within the payload. So basically, yeah. So here we can see that there are errors within the response. So like the email field is required, mandatory, then the password field is required, and then the field the password field is mandatory. So basically, the validator works. So let's try to send a valid payload, or wait, let's just send a empty string uh, for the payload and then try to send it. Yeah, so things are still working. And then now we try to send one by one, send a valid payload for each field. So we click send, and there you have it. The email. So when we send, or when we included a valid data for the payload, let's say for the email. So when we submitted it, then the validator validates it and it passed. So now let's go back to the password and then try to log in. So yeah, basically after sending a valid payload to the backend or to the web API, so we have received now a success um, by request. So we now have this payload. So the result, which has the complete payload that are uh, for the result, we have the complete necessary payload for the login. So we have the company, the access token, the refresh token, user ID, email, and permissions. So as we can see here, so our backend implementation and validators are working. And yeah, so the next thing that we will do, since we already have confirmed that the backend is working, so let's proceed with the integration of the backend and then the front end, which is the which is basically the ASP.NET Core MVC integration. So let me just first close this existing tabs open within the IDE, and let me open the project for the controller actions. This one authenticate, and then the views. We have the accounts, the login. So basically like this one here. So and then the integration, which contains the authentication led here. Okay, so for the login, so basically, okay, for the login part, basically this is the login page, which has the layout, base layout, default design, and then we use the login view model for our form. And as you can see here, we use the form tag helper, so which has the parts of the area, which is null, because we are referring to the controller, which is not within the areas. And then we have the accounts shown here, and then the action of authenticate, which is what we have here, like this one here. And then we set the anti-forgery to true and method post. So basically for the login, like the common, we have the email and then the password, and we set this to binding for the login view model with of or property of email and password, and we also have this validation here. And for the controller part, we have this authenticate method like what we have here, counts authenticate. So this is it. And then we have this validate anti-forgery token attribute to validate the basically a security feature for forms. And then we have this payload of login view model, which is the same model that we use within our login CSHTML view, which is this one here. And then for this part here, we use a try and catch, and then for the we we pass the login view model object to the API integration method, which is the authenticate async, and having the parameter of email and password, which has a return of a tuple of type API response view model token model, and the API response view model of type I enumerable of string, which contains the errors. So let's check the implementation for the authenticate. So for that, so for the authenticate method, we have this one here, the string email and password, and then for this one here, so basically we did a string content instance containing the serialized data. Basically, this is like the payload, passing the email and then the password here, and then indicating the encoding and then the application or like the media type of application JSON. And then for this part here, we just pass the payload to the to the to the API endpoint, which is the API slash v1 slash account slash login. And then for this part here, we try to validate if if success status code. So for this part here, we so after we have verified the success status code, so we get the contact response here, and then we binded the or we deserialize the JSON response using the JSON serializer here and map it or binded it to the API response view model of token model. So for this part here, we validated if the result was null and then the status code is bad request. So basically, what we did here was to get the error which is returned from the backend, and then basically just passing it to the front end for displaying any kind of backend error that the backend returned. But otherwise, if the response is successful, so we pass the whole response containing the token model here, and then for the error it's null. And then for this part here, this is a another checking that we did. So then again, we read the contents from the response, and then again deserialize the errors that we have within the backend, and then submit it through this one here, the return of null and then errors. So basically, the thing that I noticed here when I was trying to develop it prior to doing this record is um, whenever we send a response like within this part here, so there will be chances that the response will be successful, but if there will be like basically a logic within the back end that will contain errors, so that will be included or executed within this part here. So basically for this part here, um, the request was basically successful. It re it reached the server, but within that request, there was like basically a custom error that we encountered and then handled it there and then tried to return a specific error from there and then parse it here. And for this part of the error here, this is like a errors from the server from the error basically the errors from the server, but we don't have any control of. So basically that's what I noticed. So that's why I implemented it this way. Like we have the server errors here, and then also one for this one here. So basically that's the reason why for this implementation, we do have two parts where we handle like the errors. So like this one here and then this one here. So going back, so if the the request was successful, so we return this part here, and if not, we return this part here. And then going back to the controller, so if item one, which is the part where we return the token model here. So this part here, if this item one, which refers to like this part here, if this is not null, so basically meaning the login request or the login was successful. And then for the next part is we set a session variables like the token, the user ID, the CID, and then set the claims here. And then for this part here, we sign in that user. And then once it once once the user was signed in successfully, so we return to the dashboard area, which is like here, and then to the index page. But otherwise, if the request item 2 here, which contains like the errors here, is not null, so basically what this will do is just basically read the errors from this one here, and then by adding it to the model state that add model error, and then this will basically just display whatever errors that we have during that login, and then we return back to the view here, which is the login. So yeah, that's it for the implementation for the login logic for our portal. And now let's try to run this one to check if the integration was successful for our backend and then front end. So first off, let's build it again so that I won't do the mistake that I did earlier for the backend, like just basically testing Postman without even running the product. Okay, so now that we have run the both the back end and then the front end, so let's try to log in. So let's try to log in first without even providing payload for our login request. Okay, so when we try to log in, yeah, there was no error. So let's just say test 21, test 20, and then just provide. Oh, why is it not working? Okay, sorry for that. Let's just try to do a live debugging. So why was let me just um let me just rerun this um project. So log in, this one here, build it. Hmm. So let's do a live debugging. Okay, so first off, let's try to log in. Okay, it works. So for the login, we have the null. So this one here, it's okay. What was the error? Wait. I see. Maybe I see. Okay. So wait. Now I get it. So let's close this. Sorry. Let's stop this first, and then. So what I did forgot is even though we do have the validation here, which is supposed to show the text, maybe I will just try to do the same thing with the register and then just put the this one here. So basically, just put everything in one variable, and then if I'll just leave this as is for now, this one here, or we can just also say that um, email is required. Same goes with password is okay. So now that we have here the validation summary and we have this, let's try to run the app again and test it. Everything is good. And then run the app and then test. Okay. So I think it is much more better if we just do the summary validation than the individual fields. So I'll just remove this one here and then just leave this now, this span validation as is, and then we'll just refer to the validation summary. Okay, so let's build it again and run the project. Okay, so now let's start again. So if we send a blank form or an empty form, so we should receive a error. Okay, let's just stop the or let's just remove the breakpoints and continue. So okay, so the validation from the back end works now in the front end. Like we have this we displayed the errors from the back end, like for the validation, which is here, like the email field is required, or the email field is mandatory, and the same goes with the password field. And yeah, so let's try to put a invalid email and password. Okay, it works. Now let's send a valid account. Let's see if it's worked. Okay, so now we have already successfully logged in into the platform using the integration that we have for our back end and front end. So yeah, this is the final output for the integration. So um, I hope that you learned something from this video documentation or, or this documentary development. So for the next video, what I will be doing is um, to implement the basically the logout feature for this project, and then I hope that you learned something from the video. Then again, like the implementation, then the integration, and stay tuned for the next videos within the series by implementing the logout feature and other stuff. So thank you for watching and then subscribe. Thanks.